So, hello again. We are here in Rhinebeck, New York. We're going to be taking off for Baltimore in a couple of days. And I want to talk to you guys about motivation. Motivation. This is one of those weird questions that comes up, or it's at least one of those questions I would have never thought about. That's why I like getting questions from you guys, because you guys ask questions that I just wouldn't have conceived of. Like, how do you stay motivated in the tech industry? And I'm like, what do you mean? You just do the work that's in front of you and then repeat a zillion and a half times. Where does motivation come in? But apparently for you, a lot of you guys, motivation is a huge thing. There's this question, Eli, I want to get into the tech field. I want to learn all this stuff. I want to be successful and cool and all that. Whatever. But the problem is I just can't stay motivated. I can't study 12 hours a day. Eli, after I've studied 10 hours in a day, my mind just starts fuzzing out. I don't know. How can I stay motivated to keep studying? And it is an interesting question. And I think it's a question because, as I say with a lot of these things, that a lot of folks are kind of coming at all of this stuff ass backwards. Sounds a little harsh right there, but I really think it is true. As I said, for me, staying motivated in this field is not very difficult at all because I know what my goals are, I know what I am trying to accomplish, and I'm just dedicated. I just have drive. I know what I want to accomplish. I know the tasks that should get me to the goal that I have, and so you just follow those tasks, and if you follow those tasks, that'll get you to where you're going. Now, when I'm talking about that, I think that is what shows one of the problems that a lot of people have when they're trying to stay motivated in the tech industry. And the first reason that a lot of people can't stay motivated in the tech industry is that they don't have any real goals. I mean, that's a question. Like, I always bring up money, right? I talk about money a lot, and some people like the fact that I talk about money, and some people don't like the fact that I talk about money. But there is a reason that I talk about money, because I talk about money because money is one of those simple goals to talk about. Life, love, liberty, freedom, happiness. It's very hard to quantify those type of things. I want to be happy. What the hell is happy, right? Everybody has a different version of happy. If you say, I want to make $100,000 a year, that's something that people can actually get their mind around. So one of the reasons that I talk about money so much is because money is an easy like avatar for defining these other wants that you have. Does $100,000 make you happy? No, it absolutely doesn't. Doesn't. If you have $100,000 bills in front of you, you can't eat them, you can't burn them, or you can't burn them well, you can't build a house out of them, you can't have sex with them. I mean, it's just, it's 100,000 sheets of paper. The paper itself is just paper, right? What you can do with $100,000 though is that's what can make you happy. It can pay for your health care. It can pay for your house or for your mortgage. It can get you enough money so that when you go and you see somebody from the opposite sex, that they're actually interested in you. It can pay you enough money to buy a truck and travel trailer and travel around the world. Again, when I talk about $100,000, it's not the $100,000 itself. It's just material item that's pretty. I mean, money unto itself is pretty worthless. It's what you can do with the money that then brings you happiness. But what I want you guys to be thinking about is, if you're not motivated in this field, one of the questions you have to ask is, do you know what your goals are? What are your goals? Why are you in this field? Eli, I want to be happy. Eli, all this airy-fairy utopian horse crap, that's not quantifiable. And it's not about quantifying it to me. It's not about explaining it to anybody else. It's about to put it into your head. If I know I need to make $100,000 in a year, I know I need to make $10,000 this month, or I need to make $500 by the end of the day, that is something that I can get my mind around and start working on how do I do that. If I say I want happiness, good luck. Right? I mean, I have seen poor people with half their bodies rotting off that have been very happy, and I have seen rich people with everything in the world that have been very miserable. It's like you say happiness, Right? So the first thing you have to be thinking about is, what are your goals? If you have no goals, if you can't quantify your goal, if you can't sit down with your best friend or your spouse and explain what your goal is, that's probably your first problem. And again, I'm not saying explain to me what your goal is. I'm not saying explain to a random stranger what your goal is, but somebody that knows you. When you sit down with somebody that knows you very intimately and explain to them what your goal is, they should be able to understand it. They should be able to nod their head and go, yeah, you can do that, or you probably need to tweak what you're doing to get there. They should be able to understand what you're talking about, right? If you sit down with your spouse or your significant other or whatever, a best friend, and you explain what your goals are, they kind of give you that quizzical look, it probably means you don't really know what your goals are well enough so that you don't know what to do to accomplish them. And if you don't know what your goals are, then one of the questions is, how do you stay motivated in this very difficult field? This is a very difficult field. This is a very stressful field. You have to learn a lot of stuff. You have to deal with a lot of different types of people. I mean, there's a lot to this field. So if you don't know what your goals are, it begs the question, is how do you stay motivated? I know I had one of the people that I knew when I worked in the enterprise world. She was a very high-powered network engineer. She was a Cisco something or other, like a CCNP with whatever on the back end of it. And she was a senior Cisco engineer for this big migration. So we were dealing with this horrible, tedious migration. I mean, to give you a hint, it was hilarious. Like, they used Microsoft Project to write out the whole project plan for this thing, like a Gantt chart, and they taped it up on this wall. And I swear to you, it was like 100 feet of wall. Like they print out all the different tasks, with the Gantt chart, all the whole chat, and that chart was 100 feet of wall. That's how complicated this thing was. We were installing, it was back in the day, wireless was brand new. We were installing wireless, Cisco wireless. We were installing the Cisco Call Manager, the voice over IP system. They were building out the entire network for an entire campus facility. She was the person that was the head of that. And so I was talking with her about how she got to where she was and how long she'd been doing it. As I recall, when I talked to her, she'd been doing it about 4 years. And, the same thing, I was young, like a lot of you guys. I was like, well, how did you get into this? What is your degree? And I think her degree was like romantic literature or something. The Romantics, right? From medieval times, right? It was like medieval literature or something ridiculous like that. I'm like, how did you go from that to being like a CCNP and being a high level? I mean, she was the top of the networking division. Like, how do you go from literature to this? And basically, she just looked at me. She said, well, I was a writer. I was doing okay being a writer. I was married and all that. And then I had a horrible, nasty divorce. And after the divorce was over, I had custody of my 3 kids, and I had to pay the bills. She was like, my ex-husband was an a-hole. He wasn't paying any child support, or not enough child support to matter. I have 3 kids, and being a writer doesn't pay for crap. And so basically she sat there and she said, what pays me enough to be able to support my kids and support a decent lifestyle, and get me to where I need to be? And she was during the .com boom, and she looked at networking, and she got her CCNA and got a job, and basically just busted her ass and moved her way up until she was the top Cisco person, for this whole build out. I mean, she was very, very, very impressive from the career standpoint. And so that was the thing. She knew what her priority was. Her priority was her 3 kids. Her 3 kids, paying the bills, making everything go, right? Now, this isn't sexy, man. And that's a problem that I have with so many of you folks watching this, is it's not sexy, and it's not geeky, and it's not all these... It's not what you think about, When you think about what motivates you to be geeky, it's like, I want to create the next artificial intelligence or something like that. And at the end of the day, the real motivator is you need to pay the bills. You have 3 kids to feed. How are you going to feed them? It's not going to be on writing, right? So you get into this. And so that was the thing with her. She worked all day. She studied. She did the certification test. She busted her ass. She didn't need to question what her motivation was. Her motivation was feeding her kids. You know what I'm saying? I talked with another woman a lot of the same type of mentality where when I was doing my scuba lessons, right, way back way back when I was learning to be a rescue diver, and I was going down, and we were going to be doing a testing or whatever down in Florida, and so I was driving with this woman, we're talking about life and all that, and we're talking, and it was before I had backpacked through Europe, and so she was like one of these people saying, "Oh, you got to backpack through Europe, you got to travel around the world," and it was really interesting because sitting there talking to her, she was going down to learn scuba diving. She starts talking about when she was backpacking through Europe and sunbathing topless and on some yacht off the coast of Spain and all this wacky stuff, right? And you look at her and she's very social and obviously she's done all these things. And then I asked her, it's like, out of curiosity, what do you do in life? And she says she was a chemical engineer for a paper plant. And I kind of just stopped and I looked at her. Again, very attractive woman, very outgoing, very vivacious, had all this weird stuff in her background, and it was like, how did you become a chemical engineer for a paper plant? Like, what is the path for that? And she looked at me. Lesson in life here. She said, well, I went off and I did all these things, travel around the country, travel around Europe, had all the fun, then decided I needed to come back, go to college and get a job, get a career. So she said what she did, swear to you, she said what she did is she went to the university she'd been accepted to, walked into the academic advising office, and she sat down with the academic advisor and said, listen, this is what I want. I am a woman. I don't want to deal with the normal women crap in life. I want to get paid very well. I want to get respect because I deserve respect. I want to have flexibility, not because people give me time off because they don't really need me, but because I say I'm going to take 2 weeks off and there's nobody else out there to hire, so they simply accept it. Basically all those like executive type things. She said, so she sat down with the academics advisor, said, I want jobs. I want both job stability and the ability to jump around jobs if I want. I want a job that gives me the power, it gives me the respect, it gives me the money. And so the academic advisor looked at her and said, well, chemical engineering will do that. If you become a chemical engineer, if nothing else, that whole wage gap and all that will be a hell of a lot less. There really won't be the same type of sexist issues you deal with a lot of the other professions. You get the money, you get the respect, you get all those things. So she said, great, I'm going to be a chemical engineer. She went off and became a chemical engineer. She was very happy being a chemical engineer. But think about this. She knew what her goals were. As a woman, she wanted respect. She wanted leadership. She wanted money. She wanted stability. She wanted power. She wanted all of these things, and chemical engineering happened to give it to her, right? Unfortunately, in the modern world, everybody gets his ass backwards. I am going to go get certified in this, or I'm going to learn this, or I'm going to get a degree in this, and then after I already have the degree, now I'm going to figure out how to accomplish all my goals. And that turns out to a bit of a mess, right? Because by the time you have the degree, does it really matter anymore? Again, if you guys right now, if you want to be in the place that's making a lot of money, again, as I say, it's coding, it's programming. So if you go get a degree in systems administration, and then you come out, and then you're like, I really want to make the money now. It's like, well, that was kind of 5 minutes ago. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not really what people are looking for right now. So the big thing with motivation, the first thing you have to think about motivation is, what are your actual goals? What are your actual goals? So many of you guys, you're just kind of winging and praying. You're just doing it. I'm learning technology so that my life will be better. What does better mean, right? Does better mean more job flexibility? Does better mean more stability? Does better mean that you get to travel around? Does better mean that you get respect? What does better mean? That's the first thing. Now, the next thing you have to be thinking about when you're thinking about motivation in the technology world is, one of the questions is are you doing what you should be doing? Again, this is a big problem. I see this with a lot of new technology professionals. Is you talk with any longtime technology professional, and what they're going to tell you is, in order to be really good at this field, there has to be some switch turned on or off in your brain, right? When you look at the people that are really good in this field, there is something. It's almost like with YouTube that I talk about. There is just something magical or evil. There's just something different about these people that allows them to be very successful in this field. Again, when you're thinking about dealing with IT support, right? When you're thinking about going out and dealing with end users, one of the things you have to realize is you are going to take a tremendous amount of crap from those end users. It's not right. It's not good. You don't deserve that amount of crap. It doesn't matter. You're still gonna get it, right? When you have secretaries yelling at you, when you have CEOs yelling at you, when you're dealing with 6 people yelling at you, when you do something amazing, when you work your ass off for a week to just make magic happen, and then everybody is happy with you for 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes after that, they all hate you again, right? This is simply part of the field. It's like if you're going to do IT support, if you're going to do technology support, this is just part of the field. You are going to get a tremendous amount of nastiness from the end user. Now, here's the thing. If you can handle that, if you can deal with it, if you can just keep smiling and keep moving on, and you don't carry a grudge, you'll do fine. As long as you have some other things too, right? If you can just go with the flow and just deal with the situation as it is, you'll be fine. If you keep a grudge, if you're one of these people that gets angry, I had a buddy of mine back in the military. Oh my golly. He just had a temper. Like, I haven't met too many. Like, there's a lot of people in life that talk about, oh, I have a temper. This is one of the few people that truly had a temper. I saw him lose his effing mind in it was like a McDonald's or a Burger King. It must have been a Burger King. On a Burger King on base once. It was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they brought out, he ordered his your hamburger your way, and it had pickles or it didn't have pickle. I don't know what it was. It was so just like, who the hell cares? And he went bat crap. He just went off on the cashier, right? So here's the thing. He was in the military. He was a soldier. It's not necessarily a bad thing for a soldier. For a technology professional, that's really bad. If you can't keep your temper, if you can't let things slide off your back, if you keep a grudge, you're not going to do well, because the fact of the matter is everybody's going to love you and everybody's going to hate you all at the same time. You are going to have issues with every single user that you deal with at some point. If you're going to support them for a year, at some point, it's gonna get pretty damn ugly, right? And the thing is, you know what I'm saying? If you can deal with that particular situation, you can stay relaxed, you can stay stress-free, you can see them the next day and you can laugh it off. Hey, no big deal, right? You'll do fine. On the other hand, like I say, if you take that grudge, if you internalize it, if you're like, it's gonna be really bad. I mean, I saw this with one of the employees that I had. It ended up costing me a lot of money, and I didn't realize what was going on. But again, he couldn't deal with stress. When the clients started to get stressed, and when the clients, their voices started to raise a little bit, basically he would put on the crappiest ass Band-Aid for the problem he could and get the hell out of there. Basically, why? Because he couldn't deal with the stress. And the problem was, so instead of fixing the issue, instead of making sure the problem was solidly fixed, he slapped on the crappiest ass Band-Aid he can, ran the hell out, and then was basically there every 2 days fixing the same problem. Because it was never fixed right the first time. And when I finally dealt with it, that was the thing. He couldn't deal with the stress. The CEO or the business owner starts breathing down his neck, and he just started to lose it, right? That kind of mentality isn't good for IT support. If you're looking at going and programming, again, programming is sitting and looking in front of a computer screen for hours upon hours upon hours. It's not my job. It's not something that I want to do. Literally, I went and interviewed and talked with an IT shop here in Kingston yesterday. And I was asking them whether they would do development instead of just IT support services. And they said, that they didn't really want to, because they found coding to be boring. They like going out and talking to people. They like physically running cable. They like doing all this physical stuff in IT support, where when you sit coding, I mean, you just sit there for hours upon hours a day looking at a screen, right? If you don't like dealing, again, the IT people, they like dealing with people. They can deal with stress. They can deal with those situations. So they're good at IT support. If, on the other hand, you really can't deal with the human factor, then you might want to be in front of a computer screen. But a lot of people who can do coding very well can't do IT support or don't want to do IT support. A lot of people who do IT support and don't really want to do coding. Beyond that, there's a sales and there's business analyst and there's project management. And so one of the things that you have to be thinking about if you want to be in the IT profession is the course you're on right now. Do you really want to do it? Is this what you really want to do? Remember, with any business or with any profession, you spend however long learning it, and then all you're doing is iterating a million times until you retire, basically, or until you get a new job, right? So, you're sitting there in school and you're doing all this work to learn support or to learn programming. One of the things you have to ask yourself is, do you really want to spend 40 hours a week doing this once you're done? And here's the thing, again, you don't got to tell me, you don't got to tell your spouse, you don't got to tell your parents, you just got to look in the mirror. And I know a lot of you guys that are sitting there like, I can't stay motivated. The reason is you don't want to do this, right? If you just fundamentally don't want to do it, then you're not going to stay motivated, right? Because you don't want to do it to begin with. The idea of motivation, the idea of staying motivated is that you really want to do something, you're really excited about doing something, you get into it, you go through that first, that euphoria when you first get into it, and then there becomes this plateau where it's just that slog. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get in, and first you have this euphoria, you're going to get your MCSE, and you're getting this training, you learn about computers and servers, it's all exciting, right? And then you get out of that certification program, and then you've actually got to study for the tests. And it's just a long, tedious slog studying through the test. And then after you finish the test, then hopefully you get a job, and then it's exciting again. So when we're talking about motivation is the idea of getting through that long, tedious slog part. But here's what I see with a lot of you guys. It's all a long, tedious slog, right? It's like, you weren't excited in the beginning, you weren't excited in the middle, you weren't excited at the end. You're not even really excited to get a job. It's all slog, right? So there is no motivation there. Motivation is a pep talk. Motivation is, come on guys, we can do it, let's go out there. And you go, you're right. And you breathe in and you breathe out and you get excited and you give it the old college try. And that's motivation, right? If you don't care at all, if they're like, let's get excited. And you're like, yeah. Really, it's true. Like for me, when I was young, my father put me into all these sports because guys are supposed to be in sports, right? I was in soccer and I was in basketball and all that. Again, it's the same thing. They're like, let's get this guy motivated. And I just didn't care. Even now, I'm 38 years old and I still don't really know what a first down is in football, in American football. I don't. I played soccer for like 4 years in school. I forget all the rules and the points and all that kind of stuff. They had me out on the basketball court, and I really was like the doofus who got the one single basket in the entire season. Most of the time I was sitting there on the basketball court, like the game was going by, and I'm just looking down my shirt, just like dumb, because I didn't care. It's like, how do we get this kid motivated? I don't care about sports. My father took me to like a professional baseball game. And that was the thing. It was like, how do you motivate this kid? I don't care. 38, you know what I'm saying? Almost 30 some odd years later, I can still say I don't care about sports. The only sport I like is a good martial art. A good beat down, that's hard to beat. But as far as baseball and basketball and hockey's good because they got some beat downs in it. But I just don't care. And so that was the thing. Like when I was growing up, how do we get this kid motivated in sports? And the inherent disconnect is I didn't care about sports one iota. I never watched a sports game ever. I mean, I'm not even saying like I never watched one willingly. Like literally the only sports game I watched as a kid was that one professional baseball game that my dad took me to. As an adult, the only sports game I think I've seen all the way through that I actually cared about was the Super Bowl that the Ravens were in. Because I figured, well, don't really care about football, but the Ravens are in it, so I might as well watch it. Like I said, I just don't care about sport. There is nothing you can do to motivate me because I don't give a damn, right? And that's one of the issues that I see with a lot of you guys is you don't really want to be doing that. It's like, you know what I'm saying? You don't have any passion for this at all. You don't have the mindset for it. You don't ever get excited for it. So then how can you ever have motivation, right? So one of the things that you should be thinking about, and you might be listening to this like, but Eli, I want to be in the technology field. I just don't like programming or something. And so one of the things that you should be thinking about is do remember that the technology field is large. There are a lot of different aspects to the technology field. So a lot of you guys, you focus on coding, you focus on sysadmin, you focus on this, you focus on that, you focus on the other thing. Remember, this is a large field. Yes, we have systems administrators and networking people, that kind of stuff. We have coders. But one of the things you guys don't think about a lot is we also have business analysts. So what business analysts are the people that interface between the business side of the house and the technology side of the house, right? Because anybody that's dealt with a geek knows that most geeks are not as verbose as I am. Can't understand what the hell they're talking about. And on the business side, the business people a lot of times have their heads up their asses. A lot of the business people are all those varsity jocks. What happens to a varsity jock? It's kind of funny. In the modern world, geek has become so chic. Everybody keeps looking. All those dorky kids, they turned into geeks. Well, when you're in high school, you had dorky kids that turned into geeks. You also had, what happened to all those varsity jocks? All those varsity jocks turned into a lot of the business people. So those business people, they may not be as socially inept as the geeks, but they have their own weird stuff going on. And again, like I say, they care about things like football games, and they care about all this stuff. Like I say, for somebody like me, I don't care about. So the problem is you have the geeks in their own little world. They really care about Star Wars and Star Trek and artificial intelligence and the singularity and all this kind of stuff. And then you have the business people in their little world, and they care about football, and they care about money and stocks and 401ks, and then they try to talk in the middle. And remember, all business is relationships and communication, and they just don't really have a good place to start from. And so what business analysts do is business analysts act as the intermediary. So they go to the business people and they say, we understand the business people care about ROI and TCO and all this kind of stuff. And then they go to the technology people and they know the technology people care about high availability and reliability and redundancy and all that kind of stuff. And so then they try to work it out. It's like, okay, the business people need a more efficient way to keep track of sales leads. And then they go to the technology people and they say, okay, we need to be able to track sales leads. How might we be able to do this? And they go back and forth. So that's what business analysts are. There's also tech recruiters. Oh my golly. I've talked with a lot of tech recruiters. Let me tell you a little secret. I know how I keep telling you guys that you should be coders. I'm serious. No, I really have sat down with tech recruiters and like the CEOs of tech recruiting companies. If you really want to know where the money is, holy bejesus, tech recruiters are the way to go. So tech recruiters, you have these companies. You have IBM, you have Google, all these people. They're looking for specific skill sets. So tech recruiters go out and they try to find the skill sets for the companies, and they get paid a lot of money. They get paid generally, what is it? It's like 25% of the first year salary. So if you have a $100,000 a year employee that you slot in, you get 25 grand. Oops, reject. You get 25 grand for simply finding that person and placing it. You want to talk about some stupid money? Let me tell you, I keep telling you guys to be coders. That's probably a lie. That probably isn't the most accurate way to make money in this field. Realistically, if you really want to make money, it is probably recruiters. But again, recruiters are people that need to know about technology. They need to know what the hell jQuery is. They don't need to necessarily be able to write a script in jQuery, but they should know what jQuery, that's part of the JavaScript, blah, blah, blah. They need to know what Ajax is. They should know what Ruby on Rails is. They should know what Active Directory is. They should know what SharePoint is. They should be able to talk about all of these things in an intelligent fashion, a reasonably intelligent fashion, even if they don't know it, right? And so that's one of the things to be thinking about with the technology field. If you really want to be in the technology field, but you're just not feeling motivated, and you've never felt motivated. I've talked with a lot of people, and that's the thing. Again, if you were really excited in the beginning and you've come to a plateau, then we can start talking about motivation. Rah, 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 rah. But there's a lot of people. They're just like, you know what? I really don't know what I want to do. I don't really know what my goal is. I was just kind of told by somebody I should go get a computer science degree. So I'm in this computer science degree program, and I'm just not motivated. What can I do, Eli? It's like, probably get out of computer science, to be honest with you. So that's one of the things to be thinking about, is even if you want to be in the technology field, are you really doing what you want to do in the technology field? And again, this is something to think about, especially when you're going to college. And this is why the goal is important. Again, I say things like goals, and your eyes kind of glass over, and you're like, yeah, get to the important part. But the goal is the important part. Here, hold on one second. We need to pause and start again. There we go. I've got that 30-minute time limit on my little Note 4 here. So the goal is the important part. And the thing is, you need to think about the goal before you go to college. Because here's the deal. If you're really excited about computer science, if you're really excited about digging into a computer, then you should go and get a computer science degree, right? If you want to be somebody like a business analyst, that type of thing, then probably something like a systems, an IS or IT degree is for you. If you want to be like an IT recruiter, or something like that, probably a business degree is better for you. All of these different degrees can get you jobs and can get you paid very, 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 very well, but they teach you different skill sets, right? Somebody who goes through a computer science program is going to get a different education and a different skill set than somebody going through a business administration program or through an IT program or through one of these other programs, right? So you need to think about what your end goal is. What do you really want to do? What makes you excited? What makes you want to get up in the morning? And then you figure out how to get that, what path to go on. Because again, like I say, so many people are just like, I want to get an MCSE so I can get a good job. It's like, okay, what do you mean by good job? Eli, good. I'm like, oh, you have failed before you have even begun, right? This is something you have to think about. The next thing that you have to think about when you're looking at motivation and all that kind of stuff is basically the more practical stuff that you can do, the more you will be motivated. Again, as long as you have a goal and as long as you're actually interested in what you're doing, the more practical things you can do, the better it is for your motivation. Now, I get a lot of hell. I get so much crap when I tell everybody that I think PHP should be their first programming language. As soon as I say PHP should be somebody's first programming language, oh my golly, I just get a tremendous amount of garbage thrown at me by the coding and programmer community. PHP is old. PHP allows you to create really awful, crappy spaghetti code that's nasty. PHP has this problem. PHP has that problem. PHP has the other problem. But you know what the great thing about PHP, you know why I like PHP and why I think you guys should learn PHP if you want to learn coding, is because you can start creating useful things with PHP literally almost immediately. If you sit down with a PHP book, at the end of the day, you can probably figure out something that is in fact useful that you can create on your own. If you give yourself a week, you can really start creating things that are actually useful. You can create scripts to be able to get people's email information. You can start importing data into a database and then pulling it out as reports. The cool part about PHP is PHP was originally created not for computer scientists. The idea was, how do we create a relatively simple programming language that non-computer people can use? So basically PHP, the entire point of PHP is a way to manipulate data and a way to easily pull data from something, from an HTML form, from a database, from a text file, be able to manipulate it somehow and output it somewhere else, right? Because the big thing in the modern world is about data. So what I like about PHP is you learn it and then you can immediately start using it. One of the issues that I see with a lot of people that want to start coding is they start learning C++ or they learn C#, or they learn one of these other programming languages well-defined programming languages. Once you know the programming language, yes, you'll be able to do amazing things with it. The problem is when you're a newbie, you don't know what the hell to do with it. It's like, okay, I learned what a class is. What do I learned class cat. I can make different cats now. What do I do with cats? How does cats have to do with programming? What the hell is a class again, right? You know, that's a problem. Like you're dealing with this stuff and you can't do anything. You don't get the ability to create practical things with it. So if you really want to stay motivated, what I really tell you to do is stay at the practical level as much as possible. Again, you know, if you're going to be building, if you're going to be doing programming, that's why I say you learn the, I would argue you learn the web programming languages first. You learn HTML, obviously. You learn CSS, learn PHP. You learn these languages because these are the building blocks for the rest of the internet. So you can learn these languages, and then you can go and you can ask to build people's websites. Hey, you know, go to your church group, go to your temple group, go to the nonprofit you work with, and say, hey, do you need a little website built? And then what's really cool is they'll say yes. Somebody needs a website built. Everybody always needs a website built, and they will always let somebody build it for them for free, right? And then you get to actually create something useful and cool, and you get to upload it, and you get to put it on the internet, and you get to tell the world you created this website. Look at this website I created with PHP. You can give it your email address, and it captures it in a text file, which is really bad security, but it can do it, right? And it gives you something to be proud of. It gives you something to be motivated. Okay, so I just built a website for these people, and it takes the email addresses and it dumps it into a text file. And then I heard Eli, the computer guy, saying, you know, simply dumping email addresses into a text file is a really bad security thing to do, you know, really bad for security. So what I'm going to do is the next website I built, I'm going to have the email addresses and I'm going to dump them into a database, because if I dump them into a database, it's got to be more secure. And so, you know, the first step, you learn how to take data and dump it to a text file. Then the next step, you learn how to take data and dump it into a database. And then hopefully you go back to the first website you built and fix it. And then you go from there. And they're like, okay, well, I put this, you know, I get these people's email addresses and now I dump it in the database and it's secure. But it's a real pain in the butt, because now they have to do a report, and then they have to export those email addresses and import them into Constant Contact. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just create a little email blast PHP script right from their website? And then you sit there and you go through all the code and you go, wow, I can. And you just keep building and you build and you build. And the thing is, especially, remember, a lot of business, a lot of just all this stuff is psychology, right? If you understand how the human brain works, or if you have an idea of how the human brain works, it makes life a lot easier. And so one of the fundamental things is the more you create for the real world, the more excited you are. There's something intrinsic in the human condition, where the more you do for the rest of society, the more comfortable you feel. I think this goes back to all the old days, you know, when we were tribes and lions were hunting us, right? Because, you know, one of the things, you know, whenever we talk about, you know, the old days when lions or alligators were, you know, hunting humans, is we always talk about survival of the fittest, right? We always talk about survival of the fittest. Whenever we talk about survival of the fittest, what we think about is the lions are chasing the tribe of human beings, and then all of the human beings start sprinting as fast as possible. And then basically the slowest and the sickest, how it's always described, is the slowest and the sickest are the ones that are captured by the lions and are eaten. Right, you know, that's how we think about it. And that's very nice, but I don't really think it has a lot to do with reality. And it also really doesn't explain how the real human condition works. I would argue, right, survival of the fittest or survival of the fastest doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the fastest runner. Simply means you have to be faster than the slowest runner. So imagine this, right? Imagine you have this tribe of human beings, and you have the cooks in the tribe, and you have the child care people in the tribe, and you have the hunters in the tribe, and you have the gatherers in the tribe, and you have the basket weavers in the tribe. You have all these people that do something functional for the tribe. And then you have these very fit young people that don't actually do anything for the tribe. They're learning how to do stuff for the tribe, but they don't make baskets, and they don't hunt, and they don't make arrowheads, and they don't make spear shafts, and they don't really produce anything for the tribe, right? You know, they're young and they're fit, and so you're thinking, these guys are the fittest. They're young, they're athletic, they're fast. Let's explain to you what happens when the lions attack. So what we think happens when the lions attack is you have this tribe of human beings, they all run as fast as they can, and then the slow and the sick and the disabled, they're the ones that are captured by the lions. So in that scenario, these young people should survive because they're young and they're fit. Here's the reality. Right, you have this tribe of human beings. The lions come roaring over the hill to go in to eat somebody. You get the entire tribe, and they go and they start to run. And here's the thing, right? You have one of the people in the tribe is the best maker of arrowheads anybody in the tribe has ever seen. The arrowheads this person makes are just renowned. They are razor sharp, right? They just cut through a mammoth like butter, mammoth through butter. Problem is, this dumbass SOB screwed up his ankle a couple of weeks ago, so he's just not running as fast as possible. So everybody goes to run, and then there's somebody in the tribe that goes, oh crap, our best arrow maker is gonna get eaten by lions because his ankle's screwed up right now. And then the next thing that goes to that person's head is that young person right there who is very fit and very athletic doesn't actually do anything for our community. It's kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's doing math on the equation. And so all of a sudden, you just take your club and you bash that young kid in the kneecap and you drag the arrow maker out, and that young kid is now getting eaten by the lions because in fact they were the slowest. Before the race began, they were gonna win, all the way up until one of their buddies said, somebody's gonna get eaten today. It can either be the arrow maker, or it can be this snot-nosed kid that's not actually doing anything for our society. Right? And so what I think in society, and I think why so many of our young people are so kind of just nutso in our society is because they're not producing anything useful. Right? They're going to school, they're doing lab work, they're doing all of this stuff that nobody cares about. Literally, when you go to think about it, when you go to school, even if you go to like a technology program, all the way through a college technology program, almost all the projects that you do literally get thrown away at the end of the semester. You put hours and hours and hours, or you may put 40 hours into a project. And literally, once it gets an A, a B, a C, a D, or an E, it goes in the trash can. Does that make you motivated? Does that make you confident? Does that make you want to keep going out there and doing something cool? No. And I know I've been there. I've been through all this kind of training. I know what it's like. And so one of the things that I would tell you guys is that by simply going out there and producing useful things for the world, that I think really, really, truly, down at that lizard brain level, it makes us feel more comfortable. Because when we are creating useful things for the world, when I build something for you, that means I now have intrinsic value for you. And so if nothing else, when the lions come, you're probably not going to bash me in the kneecap. You guys say, life ain't nice, right? You know what I'm saying? Like 1 billion people are going to go to bed hungry tonight. There's this whole thing, like whenever I talk with people, especially from the Western world, they talk about all this utopian crap, and it's like, go take a look. Not even the other half of the world, the other like 2/3 of the world. And you'll realize it's not always the nicest, kindest place out there. And so by doing things like creating things for other people, it makes you feel like you are actually giving something to society. You are giving things to other people. And it just, like I say, down that little lizard brain part of what makes us who we are, I think that it just triggers something. You know, you get dopamines, or you get, you know, whatever hormones in your system, and you feel good about what you're doing. And when I give you something that is useful, even if I get money in return, when I produce something that is useful, that makes me feel good. And it's like a drug. You know, I give you that and it makes me feel good, and I really want to feel good again. You know, the way you looked at me and the way you smiled and the way you went, wow, I didn't think that was possible. That triggered something to make me feel, yeah, I did that for you. And then you leave and you've got that nice little euphoria going, you got the nice little happiness going, and then as anything else, it goes down and you're like, man, I want another hit of that. I want another jolt of that. And so then you go out and you produce something for somebody else, and then you get that, and then it goes down, and then you, right? And that keeps you motivated along. So again, like I say, first you learn a little bit of PHP and you create a crappy ass website. But you know that crappy ass website was better than what they had before. And they go, thank you. No problem, no problem. And then you go along and you help somebody else out, and you already learned how to build a crappy website. So the next time you build a little less crappy website, a little better website. And they go, wow, thank you. And then you build another one, and every single iteration is slightly better until all of a sudden you built like 50 websites. And then somebody's coming to you and going, hey, you know, you build really damn good websites. How much would it cost to just hire you full time? Right? That is what I would say, is that you need to be going out there and do real things. Like so much of that I see is it's the main problem in the modern education system. The modern education system has nothing to do with reality, right? So not only are you not creating anything that anybody gives a damn about, I mean, think about that. Think about all the work you do in college. I mean, just think about this for 1 second. If you're like, why am I not motivated? Just think about this for a second. You go to college. You spend 4 years in college, which takes a lot of effort, right? You produce a lot of work that literally all gets thrown in the trash, right? If there is no... If that isn't an indictment of our education system, I don't know what it is. You do all that work that is literally thrown away. It's not even given away for peanuts. It's not given away for free. It is thrown in the trash because it's fundamentally worthless. You add onto that it's fundamentally worthless the fact that most of you guys are learning stuff that frankly most employers don't even care about to begin with. And then you wonder why you're not motivated. Eli, I don't understand why I'm not motivated. Well, you're doing work that's going to be thrown away as soon as you get a grade on it. And frankly, the work that you're doing that's going to be getting thrown away, real employers don't even care about that anyway. And then are you surprised you're not motivated? Are you really, really, really surprised? Yeah. I mean, that's just how it is. So the more real stuff you can do, the better. Then the final thing that I would say with this whole idea of like motivation and all that is one of the biggest problems that I see with a lot of you guys. You try to cram too much into your head, right? You try to go out there and you're like, I'm going to cram this in my head. I'm going to study. And I get this a lot. I get a lot of people saying this with their question. I'm going to study 12 hours a day, Eli. Or, Eli, how do I study 12 hours a day? It's like, you don't. You just simply don't. Realistically, if you're going to go out and you're going to study, you should study 2 hours a day. That's really about your maximum. One of the problems that I see with a lot of people is that they just can't process all the information. So the problem is they tire themselves out. They work themselves to the point of exhaustion, even though that work stopped being valuable 10 hours ago. Right? Because what you have to think about is, you know, there's this big thing, especially in the tech world, about working 100-hour weeks and all this kind of stuff. And I have to tell you, if you are a real technology professional, you can't work 100-hour weeks. You can do this weird fishy stuff to make it look like you're working a 100-hour week, but the reality is you don't work 100-hour weeks. Because what we get paid for, again, is we get paid for making decisions. The decision is the thing that is valuable, because what happens is you make a decision, and then as I keep telling you guys, you make a decision, and then you iterate upon that decision 1,000 times. So if you make a bad decision initially, you are going to iterate on that bad decision 1,000 times. And then you're going to have 1,000 times the problem, right? We get paid on those decisions. So you don't want to be working 100 hours a week if you're really doing IT tech stuff, because you have to be able to make decisions. And after you go over 40, maybe 50 hours, and again, I've done 30-day months, and I've done 16-hour days for 30-day months. Ugh. And the problem is, at a certain point, your brain just starts shutting down. Your brain just can't comprehend all the things that are coming at it, and then you just start making really piss poor decisions. So what starts to happen is that you are working so hard in order to get ahead that you start making bad decisions. Those bad decisions means you start implementing really bad stuff, which then becomes problems in the future, which means you then have more work to do, which means you were going to do that 100-hour week so that you could clear out all the work orders in the system, and yet by the end of the 100-hour week you somehow have more work orders in the system because all of those fixes you did started to be band-aids instead of real fixes, and then it turns into a mess. So the thing is, you have to realize, again, even with these tech professionals, you don't really do 100-hour weeks. It may seem like some people do 100-hour weeks, and again, it's because they gloss over stuff. Like, if I go to the office, if I come into the office, I talk with my secretary, I talk with my assistant, I give them some instructions, and then I go have breakfast for an hour, and then I come back. It seems like I've been there that entire time, but I left for an hour to go have breakfast. And then if I have a long lunch, and then I go out and I go to a networking event, again, it's not the best way to do things. It's still not a way I would argue. But what happens is it makes people think you're doing a 100-hour work week, when really you're doing your 40 or 50-hour work week with a lot of this ancillary stuff that you can kind of attach, right? Because, I mean, if you're really going out there and doing a 100-hour work week, seriously, the only people that can really do this are the people that are doing the very menial tasks in the tech world. People that are doing basically just almost mechanical tasks. The type of task where you look at and you go, you know what, at some point robots are going to be able to do that. So somebody that can do a 100-hour week, if you are building out a data center and you need to unbox and rack 2,000 servers, you can do a 100-hour week of that, right? There's no brain power involved. As long as you don't cut yourself with a box cutter, it doesn't really matter. You pull them out of the box, you clip the things on the side, you shove them into the rack. Repeat 2,000 times. You can do that type of thing. If you're going out, you're running cable. Again, you got to be careful you don't kink the cable when you're running it, but again, you could do that theoretically for 100 hours. It doesn't take a lot of thought process, but a lot of this other stuff, it takes thought process. And when you're going out there and you're trying to study in the technology field, again, a lot of people are like, I'm going to study for 10 hours a day. It just starts flushing out at a certain point. You can study for half an hour, you can study for an hour, maybe you can study for 2 hours, but you get to a certain point where you can no longer retain the information. So the problem that comes is a lot of these people that are trying to study for 10 hours a day is they get to the 2-hour mark and they're still feeling good. They still have energy. They could still go out and do something in the world, but they keep studying. Well, the problem is past that 2-hour mark, they're not retaining anything new. All they're doing is burning through energy. So essentially, you can stop studying at the 2-hour mark and go do a normal job or go see your girlfriend or do have a life, and then the next day come in refreshed and excited to learn your next 2-hour block. Or you can do what a lot of people do, is you learn your 2-hour block, you grind away for 10 hours, all you're doing is wearing away all your energy, all you're doing is wearing away all your brain power, but you still have only actually learned 2 hours worth. You then come back the next day and you're exhausted and tired because you spent 10 hours studying, even though it was pretty much worthless, and then you start going on that downward cycle, right? And so that's one of the things you have to be thinking about with the studying and with the work is it's called diminishing returns. There's this idea that the more effort you put into something up to a certain point yields better results. Then after a certain point, no matter how much more effort you put in, it's going to plateau, and then you may actually start getting worse results. And so when you're going out there and doing all this study and stuff, you're going to hit that point of diminishing returns. So one of the ways that I would say to stay motivated is actually to stay a little calmer with what you're doing. Again, whenever I talk to you guys about plans, whenever I talk to you guys about my goals, one of the things you will always hear me talk about is like the 5-year. What is the 5-year plan? I've talked about that a lot before about, if YouTube blows up tomorrow, I don't know what I would do the day after. I don't know what I would do the month after. honestly, even a year after YouTube blows up, if it blew up, I'm sure I could pay the bills, but I'm not sure where I would be. On the whole 5-year plan, I know I will be fine though, right? Because one of the things you have to realize with technology is a lot of this stuff just takes time. A lot of you guys, what can I do in 6 months? What can I do in a year? Again, I know people that have been successful in a year. I know people that have gone from $0 to $60,000 in a year, or 60 to over $100,000 in a year. But it's not something I would plan on. It's not something that I would bet on. If you know what I'm saying. If you say, how do I get there in 3 years? We can really talk about that, but trying to compress everything down to a really short time frame doesn't really always work out. And again, like I say, you get burned out. If you're sitting there, you're busting your ass, you're studying 10 hours a day, but it doesn't really feel like you're getting ahead. All that's happening is you get exhausted. Then at the end of the month, you sit there and you're like, I don't know, what am I even doing here? Whereas if you study 2 hours a day, plus you have a life, plus you see your girlfriend, plus you have a job, it actually keeps you motivated in the long haul. That's one thing with a profession. Remember, with a profession, we're talking about long haul here. We're not talking about 6 months. We're not talking about a year. We're talking about where are you going to be in 20 years. Again, I talk about being 38, getting really damn close to 39. I remember being 18. I remember being 19. And it's amazing to think that 20 years have gone by. You know what I'm saying? I know to you guys, 20 years seems like forever and a day. And to me, wow, right? But the thing is, in a professional life, so I'm 20 years into this, but I'm still only 39. Another 20 years is 59. Another 20 years is 79. So the way retirement's going now, I have another 40 years in this profession. So that's one of the things you have to be thinking about too, is instead of I want all of this now, think about if you are 20 years old right now, you have another 50 years of professional life. I'm not saying be lackadaisical, but you got some time. That's one of the funny things. So many people are like, Eli, I'm 31. What do I do? And it's like, dude, you still have 39 years simply of professional life. That's not even of your life. You still got 39 years of minimum. Again, who the hell knows what's going to happen with the retirement age in another 40 years. But you still have that long. So don't be so focused. Again, because people over-focus, they get worn down, they get stressed out, they lose motivation, and then they give up. And the big thing you have to understand in this field is once you give up, it is game over. It is game the F over. You cannot fail, right? A lot of people talk about this field, and a lot of people, failure is a big thing, especially, the startups talk about failure all the time. Failure. Eli, what happens if I fail? And here, I'm going to tell you something. 20 years doing this crap. Let me tell you, let me just put it on the line right here. You can't fail. You can't fail. You can give up. You can't fail. It's not really that you can't fail, but failure is I guess if you go bankrupt, that's a failure. If you have a heart attack, maybe that's a failure. But failure the way you guys are thinking about it, Eli, what if I fail? What you have to be thinking about, like I say, is on the long term. With me doing the tech field now, like I say, as long as I've been doing it, we've had ups and we've had downs. When I got into this, we were doing the .com boom. This was the greatest thing in the world. As I talk about, people used to look at me because I had all these certifications. I remember people looking at me, looking at my resume and going, wow, you're on the 5-year retirement track, right? I was cool back then. I was really cool. All the way up until I wasn't. All the way up until the .com bust happened. And I couldn't get a job to save my life. Thankfully, through the weird thing of how that goes, I then ended up getting my own consulting, starting my own little consulting company. That wasn't the plan, right? It was up, and then it was down. But what got me to the consulting company was that I kept going. I still wanted to do this. This was still the thing that I had the best skill set at. This was the thing that I saw where the money was, right? And then, I go with the consulting thing. I build up the business. I have the employees. Everything's going great guns. And then the next recession, the real recession happens when everybody closes up their pocketbooks. Nobody wants to spend a dime on anything. And then basically it goes down again. And then I sit there. And this is where motivation is yes, I was sad that I had to close down my shop. Wasn't too sad I had to get rid of my employees. I shed a tear, maybe. One tear. I had to get rid of my employees and all that kind of stuff. But I was still a technology professional. So again, I went out. I went into a master's degree program to see if I wanted to do that. Being in the master's degree program, I realized how bad the technology education was. Ended up creating everymanit.com, which is this. And now this has gone up. And here's the thing, I'm going to tell you in the future, something's going to happen. This is going to blow up. Like, all these people are like, Eli, what are you going to do if something happens with YouTube? It's like, guys, if? You guys are obviously noobs, because let me tell you, something will happen with YouTube. I don't know what will happen with YouTube. I don't know when it will happen with YouTube. I don't know how it will happen with YouTube. I've been in this game a long damn time. Something's going to happen to YouTube, and it's going to go right? Everything I have worked for the past 5.5 years is going to hit a brick wall at 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm going to shed more than one tear over that. And then I'm going to look around and I'm going to figure out, okay, well, what's the next plan? What's the next thing that I want to do? And so that's the thing, is you have to actually enjoy what you're doing. You have to, like with me, when I have these ups and downs, I've thought about other businesses. Again, I know a lot about business. I know a lot about other things other than technology. Again, I talk about my technology training, but remember, I also have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've been through a lot of other training. I have 600 hours of emergency services training. I mean, everything from bodyguard work to collapsed building to scuba to dive rescue to cave rescue. I've got all that. I mean, I've got more training in that than a lot of the professionals do. Beyond that, I've been to real estate. I graduated real estate school. Beyond that, I went to the bartender academy, for Christ's sakes. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, don't try to use it. Spaghetti Monster's sakes. I have a lot of other stuff that I could fall back on. But at the end of the day, I enjoy technology. It provides me with what I like. It provides me money. It provides me respect. It provides me flexibility. It provides me all of these things that I find very valuable. And so I keep coming back to it. The final thing that I'll say, and then we'll close this off. Hold on one second. We're at the 31-minute mark. So before this cuts me off, let me pause and restart. So the final thing that I'll say on motivation too is I do wonder sometimes, again, I talk about in these videos trying to find the appropriate word for things. And so I do wonder, like when we talk about motivation, as I've talked about motivation here, whether motivation is really the right word and really the right concept for us to be discussing. I think really at the end of the day is if we're really talking about this, we really should be talking about drive. Right. So in the English language, we have 1,000 words for so many concepts that are very close together. And so motivation is a word that we use a lot, but I really don't think it is the appropriate word most of the time in the technology world. What I would really say is, do you have the drive to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish? And because again, like when we talk about motivation doesn't really have the goals in mind. Motivation really doesn't talk about, what is the end game? What are we going for here? Really long haul. What I would say is drive. Drive is a better word. So you need to go out. You need to figure out what your goals are. You need to figure out what makes you, like, you figure out what your goal is, and then you figure out what you are willing to give of yourself to accomplish those goals, right? What are you willing to give up? So some people, may say, I can't give up my Whole Foods. I need to eat organic food, and so that's very expensive, but I need to get to these goals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work more. I'm going to try to work 50 hours a week. so that I can accomplish the goal, because I have this base level expense. Or you may have other people that say, I don't care. I'll eat everything from Sam's Club. I just can't work a lot. I just, once I get over the 40-hour-a-week mark, my brain kind of explodes. So I'm going to give up eating good food, so that I can achieve the goal. What you have to think about is, what can you give from yourself in order to accomplish the goal? And you also have to think about, again, how is what you're doing really something that you can keep doing? As I say, with people that want to do programming, a lot of people, I hear, programming is a way to make money. I'm going to go out and program, and then they sit in front of a computer screen and they kind of blank out. Or you take people that should be programmers and you put them into an IT support situation and they lose their mind because everybody hates them, right? These are some of the things that you have to be thinking about. And that's why I think drive is a better word. Do you have enough drive to accomplish your goals? And if you don't have enough drive, then how can you tweak what your plan is so that you do have enough drive? You're like, Eli, I really want to accomplish these goals, but I'm too tired. I'm exhausted at the end of the day. I can't get there. When you think about motivation, you don't think about your resources expended. With drive, it's like, okay, well, if you're trying to get to these goals and you've expended all the resources you have so you can't get there, then how can we change what you're doing? Maybe what you're doing isn't appropriate, and so we can tweak that a bit to get you to your goal, to get you to where you're going. So really, that's what I would say. At the end of the day, I think drive is a better word than motivation. Do you have the drive? Do you have the determination to get to your goal? And if you don't, then ask why, right? I want to make $100,000 a year from technology, and I'm going to do it by being a computer programmer. And then you're not there, and you're not getting to where you want to go, and you're like, why is this? It's like, well, maybe because you fucking hate computer programming, right? So think about that. I would say at the end of the day, drive is really, it's a better word overall. But yeah, those are my very long-winded thoughts on motivation. The big thing is, like I say, the big thing with technology and being successful in technology is simply not quitting. Again, it's not failing. Like whenever anybody talks about failure is a cop-out. And I'll say that because I really like being snarky at the startup people, and they always talk about failure. I really like just poking them in the eye. Right? Failure is a cop-out. Failure is basically a way to blame other people for you giving up. And that's all it is. And that's something that you really have to think about, is it's not... Again, you can theoretically fail, again, if you have a heart attack, you're doing a startup company, fine, you can fail then. But for the most part, 99% of the time, you don't fail, you give up. And so what you really have to do is you have to keep your drive, you have to keep your motivation, you have to just keep your feet going, one step after another step, after another step, after another step, after another step. And I can't tell you if you're gonna be successful after 100 steps or 1,000 steps or 1,000,000 steps. What I can tell you is if you keep moving forward, at some point you will be successful. So the important thing for you is to figure out your own internal needs that will keep you moving forward. Again, it's big. Figure out what your goals are and be honest with your goals. You don't need the stupid-ass, geeky, utopian, make the world a better place goal. That is the worst goal in the world. I want to change the world is the worst effing goal you can possibly have. That doesn't mean anything, right? I have 3 kids to feed and a mortgage to pay for. That is an awesome goal. That is a goal that's going to make you successful. I want respect, and I want to make, again, a 6-figure salary, and I want job security. That's an awesome goal to go for. So find your goal, figure out what you're willing to do, what you're able to do, and then just slowly put your feet one after the other and go for it. You do that, at the end of the day, you will be successful. If you don't, if you give up, and that's what it is, it's not failure. Again, all you guys, Eli, I failed. No, you didn't. You gave up, right? And that's the thing. Like when I shut down my consulting company, I didn't fail. I take it as a failure internally, but I gave up, right? I looked at the numbers. In 2009, I sat there, I had the employees, I had the building, I had the infrastructure, I had the clients. I sat there, I looked at the reports, and went, I just don't see how I win. You know what I'm saying? I didn't fail. I looked at the numbers and went, I give up. And that's the thing. But that was that particular instance. And then once I was done, once I stopped the consulting company, then I kept moving. It was like, okay, that I gave up on. That didn't work. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? I have been very successful, and I have been very unsuccessful. The idea is you just keep going one step after the other. Sometimes you'll be successful, sometimes you won't. Sometimes, again, like I say, these recessions aren't forever. Again, the dot-com bust was 3 or 4 years. When you've been in the professional world 20 years, I mean, a fifth of your profession being a recession kind of sucks, but that's not forever. The Great Recession, however long that was. Again, that was a number of years. But the thing, you go and you study and you get better. At some point, the recession will be over. At some point, people will be hiring again. And if you've been studying, and if you've been learning, and if you've just been continuing to do all of these things, then you'll be hired again. Again, that was something that one of my old mentors told me a long time ago. And he said, Eli, you're a smart guy. I don't know if you're going to get hired in 6 months or a year, but it's not going to be 5 years. You keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to get hired again. A couple years, and I got back on my feet. So this is one of those things. You just got to keep moving forward. And then the final thing before we shut off is, again, do practical things. Do real things for the real world. This is the biggest problem that I see with everybody, whether it's college students or you're going through MCSE boot camp or you're self-studying. Is you do all this lab work, you do all these stupid little exercises, you're not doing things in the real world. The more you do in the real world, it is just a natural human thing. I don't know what it is. There is something in us as humans, is when we are building things, when we are creating things, when we are making other people's life better, there's just these little, they're drugs that are triggered in our brain that makes us feel good. I give you something that you need, I feel good for doing that. And then I want to feel good again, so I give somebody else something they need. And then I want to feel good again, so I give somebody else something they need. And then it's like, wow, I'm getting a little bit of this drug, and a little bit of this drug is really nice. If I give them something twice as nice, I bet I will get twice as amount of this drug. And you give somebody something even better. And it is. It's like, I can't especially for new people, when you deploy a solution that genuinely makes an entire company better, there's just something that gets dumped into you that just feels really good. It feels really good when that whatever gets pumped into your system, and you don't even really need to. And motivation doesn't even come up again. It's like a drug high. It's like you want that again. You know what I'm saying? So there we go. That is my very, very long-winded explanation of motivation. But you just got to keep trucking along. Just don't lie to yourself. Again, come up with real goals. Don't lie to yourself. Some of you guys lie to yourselves. You know what I'm saying? Eli, I want to be a programmer. It's like, no, you don't. You know what I'm saying? It's just... And that's what I see, is so many people are going after these things they just don't intrinsically want to do. They don't want to be programmers, or they don't want to be IT people. And that's a big thing to understand with this field, is there's all of this other ancillary stuff. Again, how many of you guys have thought about being a tech recruiter? And again, this is what I hate about our education system, is because tech recruiting is stupid money. Stupid money. Stupid money. Did I say it was stupid money? It's just stupid money. And again, I've talked with CEOs of these recruiting companies, just stupid money. But how many of you guys have thought about being a tech recruiter? Right? You like dealing with people? You like learning about technology but not getting certifications? You like making a stupid amount of money if you're pretty good at it? tech recruiting, right? But that's the thing, and that's why you also need to get out there. You need to be talking with people, different people. You need to be doing these informational interviews, because, like I say, so many people. He's like, Eli, I'm not motivated. And not only do you not have a goal, but you don't want to be doing this. Your heart isn't in it, right? Because again, motivation is about getting you through the plateau. You get really excited in the beginning, you get really excited in the end, and then in the middle there's just this slog. And so really when we talk about motivation, the question is, how do we get through this middle slog? A lot of you guys, you weren't excited in the beginning. You don't figure you're going to be excited at the end. You sure as hell ain't excited now. That's not motivation. That's a big warning light saying this is not what you should be doing in life. Know what I'm saying? So anyways, with that, we will call it a day from here in Rhinebeck, New York. More thoughts for you guys to ponder.